You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
But anyways, all right, let's talk about the bye week, Neil. So Fran Brown, obviously a first-year head coach for Syracuse, and not just for Syracuse. He's a first-year head coach across any level. So we don't have any sort of sample with how a Fran Brown team will look after a bye week. What we do know is that under Dino Babers, who was the head coach of Syracuse for 8 years prior to Fran Brown, the Orange weren't very good coming off a bye. 4-9 was their record, and I got that from orangefizz.com. So 4-9 after a bye. So Neil, how are you feeling about it?
That's an interesting
do you think there's any sort of correlation? Because I mean, I don't personally.
I mean, it's impossible for me to, and you know me, I'm not afraid to give my opinions, but yeah, I mean, Fran's a first-year head coach, a first-time head coach, and I will go on and on about how I like Dino Babers as a human being, but obviously it just didn't work out, for the, over the course of the tenure, but I wish him well. I mean, Fran Brown says all the right things to me. And again, I'm a homer, I'm an alum, blah, 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 but I'm also like you, I'm not afraid to call it out. He just, to me, says all the right things. I mean,
he's great with the media.
He's so, but it's not, what's the word I'm looking? I don't think it's spin. I don't think
genuinely
so. It comes from the heart, and recruits talk about it, and their parents talk about. He just keeps it real, and he's confident, and he should be, and that's great. But I don't think he's like overconfident or cocky. I think he's humble. I think he's appreciative. I think he's confident, and I think he's just genuinely says he assesses where things are. And he's talked about, I believe it was yesterday, about the need for consistency across the board. He talked about, and I thought it was really interesting. He talked about, he said this in the past too, how he wants Syracuse to, obviously compete for ACC titles and CFP berths and be the main event, is his quote. And that's cool. Obviously bring Syracuse back to more ACC and national relevancy. But he said, I believe it was yesterday, talking about how, this team needs to, the program, not just, in this season, but just kind of moving forward, needs to be more consistent in terms of winning games throughout the season, just really having a lot of success to be thought of as this quote unquote main event where, there's a portion of the fan base, and you and I are part of it, where we're going to follow the teams no matter what. I mean, you have a podcast, I cover the teams, for Inside the Loud House, but we're just diehards. But there's people, whether in Central New York or alum elsewhere or whatever, that maybe are more just kind of general fans that maybe will be more inclined to go to games and just really support these teams emotionally or through NIL or whatever, if they're more consistently nationally relevant, going to high bowls. I'm not saying they're going to make the CFP this year. Maybe that'd be cool.
Hey, but, the last odds, I think you just tweeted it out. I think ESPN's giving them a 2% shot.
Weird
because it went down after a bye week.
I don't know all that FPI and everything. Like they just got to win games.
You know what I think it is? Sorry to cut you. I know what it is.
You're fine.
Boston College looked pretty good against Missouri, and we're playing Boston College on the road.
They did.
So it makes that game more losable. And if you lose that game, you can only lose so many games to be considered for the playoff.
Agreed.
I think that might have been why.
Especially even with a 12 team and at-large berths and all that. I mean, the ACC, other than the champion, at the most, I think would get in one other. I don't know that. We'll see how the season shakes out. So you'll think about like Miami and maybe a Clemson, but then all these other teams, including Syracuse. I mean, if Syracuse is 10-2, I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But anyway, my point with all that is, I mean, it's just Fran knows that to really capture a larger percentage of the fan base on a more consistent basis is for the team to be more consistently winning. He said the right things. So I didn't answer your question at all, but to get back to, coming off the bye week, I'm sure he has his guys ready to go. They're not going to take any. I mean, didn't he say before the Ohio game, the season opener, that Ohio was a better team? I mean, so to speak.
I mean,
because they won 10 games the last 2 years.
He definitely did. He actually, I think, used that exact phrase.
But I mean, I respect that.
I mean, come on. I think Syracuse, we all
But
knew
he was making the point that, hey, listen, we're 13-13 over the last 2 years. We got a new staff, including me, and Ohio's won 10 games the last 2 years. So yeah, maybe they are better than us. And obviously they're not, and Syracuse won by 16. But so he's saying all the right things. I think I'll have him ready to go, but we don't know. He's not. I mean, it's so weird to have a buy this early in the season, but I know they have 2 buys, so I think they'll be ready to go. And again, just being consistent and, like you said, in all 3 phases and avoiding injuries, I think they'll be fine.
I think there will be a couple of things with the bye week. Number one, I mean, Syracuse is coming off a bye, but you mentioned off the top of the podcast, I'd mentioned this on Sunday's podcast, Stanford's coming off a bye too. Right. So quite frankly, I mean, full disclosure, I don't care. There is no excuse. It's even. This team's in rhythm. You're coming off a bye. No. You're both coming off a bye. You're both on equal footing here. I don't want to hear it. Right? It's come on. We got to come out fast.
That's a non-starter for me. Yeah.
I think the second thing is all right, to get going, 2 things: run the football, short passing game. That's how you get going. Especially when you're coming off a bye and you may not be in rhythm, get those easy completions, sling it out to a guy like Zede Haynes, let him try to run in space. And there you go. It's almost like the layup in basketball. Sometimes you just got to see it go in the hoop.
Absolutely.
It's not even a jump shot. You just got to see it go in.
I think that's
I'm not saying Kyle McCord's going to come out and he's going to throw 4 interceptions in the first quarter or whatever. If he does, that's a problem. But if let's say you might sense a little bit of rust from him, and I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think he's going to come out well. Short passing game, screen plays, quick hitters, quick curls, run the football. That's how you get going. And all of a sudden you're in rhythm. It's like the bye week. It was only rest. That's it. Just no rust, just rest.
I think that's a great point. You have a nice, obviously we don't know if they'll start with the ball or not or be on defense, but nice sustained drive, get in rhythm with the run game, pass game, nice balance. We know Kyle can throw deep throws, but get some under his belt, see them go in, so to speak, and then just light them up. Yeah, I agree. And on defense, obviously just, Stanford has a solid dual threat quarterback. Just, play smart, no stupid penalties, win the takeover game or the takeaway game. I think they'll be okay. Yeah.
I think so too. And we can talk a little bit more about Stanford here coming up. One guy that might be playing his first game for Syracuse against Stanford is Justus Ross-Simmons. And we're talking about a bye week here and everything like that. If there's anyone that benefited from that bye week, it's him because he's recovering from that injury. Neil, let's just say he does play, okay? Because Fran Brown mentioned that there's a chance he goes in his press conference yesterday. What do you expect from Justus Ross-Simmons?
Yeah, Coach Fran did say yesterday that he'll be available or participating in practice this week. I don't think he's listed on the depth chart, but I mean, obviously that could change. Depth chart comes out on Monday and the game's on Friday night.
It's funny you mentioned that because Marlo Wax was on the depth chart before Georgia Tech, and then
he was. Yeah, I don't know the reason behind that. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so I mean, either way, let's just assume he's available and get some reps. I think that the key thing for him is to just he's battling a hamstring injury, right?
Yes.
So those. I mean, I think you and I have talked about it.
I've had one before. They're not fun.
Yeah, they're dicey, and he's a wide receiver. He's running well. They're all running all over the place, but just ease him back into it. I mean, it'd be one thing, and he's really talented. I thought once he transferred to Syracuse that he would certainly be, one of the starting wide receivers, and I think if he didn't get injured, he probably would have. But they have so many other weapons at the traditional wide receiver spot as well as tight ends that it's not like they need him. And again, no disrespect to Stanford, but it's not like Syracuse needs him if he does get reps to catch 8 passes for 100 yards and 2 scores. I think I think just getting him some reps, getting him into game mode would be the key. And I'd love to see him out there for a bit because it's more encouraging to have him be out there than not, but you don't ease him back into it. I mean, like you said, you got Haynes and you got Gadsden and Pena and Hatcher and, Raw. I mean, all these guys. I mean, they have their depth at receiver, both between wide receivers and tight ends, is really strong. So I'd love to see him just get some reps, because that to me suggests that he's, if not fully healthy, but at least, really close. And I do think, as we've talked about today and on other shows, as the competition gets tougher, they could certainly use a guy like him being available for, as one of the key targets for Kyle McCord.